Everything is subject to controversy. Individuals, organizations, sports, and of course, esports. And while in sports, controversy can come from an individual player's actions, a lot of the time it'll be things that happen in the game, especially around the rules. Whether it's an ambiguous ruling, or an abuse of the rules, or even every organizer's worst nightmare, a bad ref call. But today, I want to tell you about one of the most iconic ref, or I guess TO calls in Smash history. The IMO should be replayed moment, and also to do a never before done deep dive into the match to see if the call by this TO was the right one. Before we get to the set, you're going to need to know a little about these. You see, while today controllers are insane, going for hundreds to have the latest in controllinator technology, back in the day there wasn't all that much modding for controllers. But there was still a fever to have the fabled good controller among the top players. Why did top players make such a fuss over their controllers? Well, it's thanks to the lovingly crafted Melee code. Look, I'm not going to pretend to know what exactly causes the issues I'm about to tell you about, and I'm not reading those 100-page documents to be able to do it either. I have other mind-numbing tasks to do later in this video. But I can tell you what a good controller did, and it's really two big things: dashbacks and shield drops. Let's start with dashbacks. You see, Melee is dumb. When you input a dash in the opposite direction your character is facing while standing, you should do a dash, right? No, you stupid fucking idiot. You see, certain controllers wouldn't register with the game fast enough, and would cause the character to do this slightly slower turnaround. Now, this may seem insignificant, but in top level Melee where one frame can make all the difference, this lost people games, and sometimes sets. Next is shield dropping, a technique which allows you to drop through a platform while in shield. I don't know what you expected from me. You do this when you slowly push down on the grey stick while in shield. Seems simple. However, this is very hard to execute, and sometimes not fast enough, especially when compared to the other method to execute a shield drop, discovered by Axe, lovingly called the Axe method, where you simply do this. Much more consistent and faster as well. However, this was once again based on whether you got a good controller. As with a bad one, you would sometimes get spot dodges when you did this input. This controller variance led to top players like M2K and Armada being notorious for searching on tournament days for good controllers from their fans.
YouTube King is even more obsessed than me when it comes to controllers.
He's a
that's
controller
a bad
master.
sign.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
That's a huge problem.
You need rehab.
Because it's already a big problem for me.
Have you seen his little duffel bag of controllers?
Yes, it's here.
This was just the norm for the longest time, until we got to August of 2017, where we would see Dan Salvato come out with a video announcing the release of the Universal Controller Fix, or UCF. This was a stealth fix that would use a memory card mod to slightly increase the frame windows for stick detection during these techniques. This means that even Lil Alex playing on his $12.99 GameCube knockoff he got from CEX would be able to play Melee on a kind of level playing field. This mod, while ever so slightly controversial at the time, got picked up by the community very fast, and today is standard at every event you go to, and even in your Slippy Dolphin codes. However, UCF would end up being the cause for what is now one of the most iconic controversies in Smash. IMO should be replayed. You see, later in that month of August, Shine 2017 would be happening, and it was announced to be the first major to use UCF for its tournament standard. Now, let's just jump all the way forward to top 8. We have Leffen versus Chudat in the first round of losers. The set starts off bad for Chu, going down 2-0, but he gets it together and starts playing out of his mind. In Game 4, he takes the last two stocks with just his solo climber, and closes out Game 5 to make the reverse 3-0, breaking the hearts of all the Leffen fans in the world. However, something was a little strange about the set. After the end of Game 4, Leffen did a uncharacteristic controller check. But, I mean, this wasn't too strange, so no one really made note of it at the time. However, after the set, it was made clear that UCF was not actually turned on during the set. This caused an uproar and prompted Leffen to tweet a now iconic tweet: IMO should be replayed. With how new UCF was at the time, no one really knew or understood the repercussions of what it being off would mean for the legitimacy of this set. So, in the end, they made the controversial call for Leffen and Chu to replay the whole set. People were unhappy, to say the least. And all of that hate was directed at Leffen, I assume due to the aforementioned tweet, making it come across as him lobbying for the replay, where the overall public opinion seemed to be that Chu won on the standard that they've been playing on for 15 years, so why not just let his result stand? Especially if you checked after Game 4 and made no call to have anything fixed. But the public opinion was still split on this. However, the crowd won. People were popping off for wobbles in the next set.
There it is.
There we
the
go.
trick still worked, so it's okay.
And unlike the last set, she would take the lead 2-1. But as if cursed, she would go on to lose the set in a 2-stock in Game 5.
Leffen wins 3-2 in the run back.
Oh, man.
Now I'm sure you can see what makes this moment so controversial and historic. The fact that Leffen won on the repeat, just tying it all together. However, I want to know, should it have been replayed? How much of an impact did UCF being off just have on that first set? So I set out on a crusade to finally settle the score on this moment in Melee history. To do this, I used the YouTube recording of the set to review the footage to count all of the shield drops in the set, both Leffen and Chu missed. And then dashbacks to see if either of the two had a significant advantage over the other due to their controller. Honestly, I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. Do you know how tedious it is to count dashbacks? Like, Jesus Christ. I mean, luckily for me though, because UCF was new, they were still doing that thing where they like dash forward before dashing back to avoid the bad dashbacks. So there was probably less to count than there would have been in a set nowadays. And also, ice climbers don't really dash back, so thank God for that. So upon counting the dashbacks that could be affected by UCF for Leffen and Chu, Leffen did 98 dashbacks and Chu only 21. However, Leffen only missed 6 of his dashbacks, whereas Chu missed 8. That's a 32% difference. However, there are some pretty important notes to these stats I noticed upon collecting them. See, the way Chu moves, and maybe ice climbers in general, is interesting. When wave dashing, if he wants to do an action facing the opposite direction, because the wave dash is so long, he can just hold that direction during the wave dash and not dash to turn around. And this happens quite a bit during their set. So if this is a habit of his, a good few of those missed dashbacks might have just looked like missed dashbacks, but could have very well just been his muscle memory turning him around before dashing. This, along with the small sample size, makes it a pretty hard nut to crack. But even if only 2 of those were legitimate failures, then I mean it's still worse than Leffen's controller in that department. However, dashbacks are clearly more important to Fox than ice climbers just based on these pure quantities. But let's move on to shield drops. For shield drops, it was actually fairly shocking. Leffen only executed 6 shield drops, and Chu only 3. And only Leffen missed a shield drop. Now, my thinking is that, 1, there was 2 games played on FD, dramatically reducing the sample size, and 2, the matchup means that ICs won't really try and challenge the platforms all that much, as it's where they're weakest. Along with this being a new mod, shield drops were really not at the same level of prominence as they are now. Shown by Leffen, when dropping through the top platform, would very often choose to jump and then drop through with a move, as opposed to shield dropping. This data does make coming to a conclusion pretty difficult. An argument for the replayed set would be that it's clear Chu isn't as affected by UCF being off due to the severe lack of actions that UCF would even affect for him. However, even if that is the case, the reality is that they were both disadvantaged by this pretty equally in their controller department. So in the end, this still comes to quite a hard crossroads, where there really isn't a clear answer. So before I get to my opinion, just let me know what you think in the comments. I mean, let's keep it civil, right? In the end, this was just a major TO slip-up that no one was happy about. I mean, so let's not flame the people for a nearly 6-year-old set. But my opinion, after collecting this data and watching the set about 4 times to collect it, I think the result probably should have stood. Before this, I don't think I would have said that, but watching the set, I think Chu just played better. And Leffen's play didn't really seem all that affected by UCF, just based on his habits during the set. So I guess I could say that IMO, it shouldn't have been replayed. God, that is an awful joke to end this video.